Lions fans. It's time for the podcast you've been waiting for. The show where Kool-Aid runs blue, faces turn red, and rose-colored glasses never go out of style. This is the Detroit Lions Podcast, your Detroit Lions and Reddit connection. And now, the guys people are talking about when they discuss monkeys and footballs. Chris and Case.
Hey, howdy-ho, Lions fans. Welcome to the Detroit Lions Podcast, episode 257. This is the official Detroit Lions podcast for Reddit, and I am your dashing host, Chris. With me is my good friend and co-host, Case. How you doing, my man?
Well, you know, Chris, I'm a little upset. I keep hearing that we're expecting more cases in the United States, and I'm just wondering, like, I don't think anybody asked for my permission. Like, if I'm being cloned, I feel like I should at least be consulted about it.
Yeah, I think the rest of us should be consulted too. All right, we got a good show today. First, Lions' most overpaid player ahead of free agency. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a fan's thoughts on his season tickets. I think it was a really, really good piece in the subreddit that popped up today, and definitely worth a little conversation. We got a free agency fanboy moment from Case. We'll talk about that and a little bit more about free agency. You know, it's coming just a week from now. We're going to take you around the division, that and a whole lot more. Case, we got a great show lined up. You ready to go, man?
It's my body, man.
Let's kick this off and break it down.
God. Yes, it is your body. All right, let's do a couple of quick announcements.
What a body it is.
Yeah, we can both say that. Check us out and help us out on Patreon. Special thanks to Dylan from Guam. That's right, of course, our very first donor, Mathis, and Brian Burkheiser from I Prevail, the guys at iprevailband.com. Make sure to check them out. Also, check us out and join the crew talking. Riz, Case, Sam, and me, Brian, everybody, all the cool crew is over at patreon.com/DetroitLionsPodcast. You get in there, you donate at least $1 a month, but I mean, Case is, you know, he's looking for a new laptop. You can go more. You can use super chat here too if you're on the YouTube. If you want, you can help him out. Go on over patreon.com/DetroitLionsPodcast and get your donation set up. You'll get access to the Slack chat, which is literally the most intelligent Lions chat on the internet. You get some insider stuff coming, all kinds of good stuff, and you get to hear all the stuff first from us as what's going on. Patreon.com/DetroitLionsPodcast. Get in there and set up a donation to help the show do all the great stuff we do with your generosity. Also, give us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/The Detroit Lions Podcast, Instagram, Detroit Lions Podcast, and on the Twitter machine at DET Lions Podcast. DET Lions Podcast, the very best place to see Case.
With no pants on.
It is the best way to see Case. Also, subscribe to us on the YouTube, youtube.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. Hit the subscribe and the notification bell, and we'll get all the action when we go live. You love all that. It's good stuff there, and more and more coming. Also, the draft party's coming. We'll talk about that. That'll be on the YouTube. You want to make sure to get a hold of that and avoid the coronavirus. Also, rate us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, iHeart, Pandora, all those places. Go on there, give us that 5-star rating. Let them know how much you love us. Remember, the 5 stars are forever. And if you have constructive criticism, we're good. We're down with that. Head on over to the subreddit and give us your feedback there. Lastly, give us a call on Skype. Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word. Or call us on the Lions line. 929-33-LIONS. It's 929-335-4667. You can leave a message there, get a chance to hear yourself on the show, or you can call us live on the show today.
Tighten your chin straps, kids. It's time to review this week in Reddit.
All right, it's time to talk about all the fun and exciting things going down in Reddit. I almost messed it up, Case. It's one of the hardest things to say, and I don't know why. Got a lot of good stuff going on. A lot of stuff to talk about here. I'm going to start out first with a post from OMFG Becky from the subreddit. The Lions are not interested in signing Glasgow. It's an interesting one. We talked about it a little bit in the Slack as well. This is interesting, and the question is, why did the Lions not even go after Graham Glasgow? Why?
Right.
Why?
I don't know, man. It really is. It's baffling to me, and I understand and actually generally agree with the idea that guards are not like
big
the
money
most
man.
important players.
Yeah.
They're easier to plug and fill than any other position on the offense. So I generally agree with that. But to be so adamant about not even like offering him a low ball is just strange to me. And so like I have to ask, is there something we don't know about? And the chances that we'll ever find out are probably pretty slim unless Graham decides to talk. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's
I don't
weird.
think there's any talking until it's over. I don't think anybody's going to talk about anything until it's all said and done. And
it's just very odd,
especially as a guy who's he was your starting center and backup center. There's been some talk about a rift a little bit between Glasgow and Ragnow, and that's interesting. I don't know what to think about that.
Is it because, well, and then you ask the question, why can't we get over that? why can't we, why can't we fix, a minor locker room? And is it because Glasgow wanted to be the center or something like that? I don't know. Or is it like, is there some truly personal thing? And I won't even bring up the conspiracy theory that I spouted earlier in the Slack chat because I was just being joking, but like, but I mean, it's mildly frustrating if that's what happened, and we don't know that's what happened. We truly have no idea, so we're just reaching and making conjecture here. So don't take this as us, starting any rumors about anything. But I mean, if that was truly the issue and the two of them just didn't get along, how is that not a thing that you can't fix? Like, send them to couples therapy. Jesus.
Well, the other part of it though is, remember we talked to Wayne, Mr. Fonts, Coach Fonts. He said that there's sometimes that guys just don't fit and you gotta let them go. And it may be a personality fit, right? They don't buy in. And I was surprised, right? Wayne's a guy I always loved and respected. I always looked at him as, he's always been known as a player's coach, right? Mm-hmm. That was a pretty hard take for him, harder than I expected from Wayne Fonts, right? From Coach Fonts. But it was a pretty hard take about, look, if they don't fit and their personalities don't fit, you just got to let them go. And maybe, we feel like the Diggs thing was something like that. There was some locker room stuff, or maybe he didn't quite fit or buy into everything that was going on. Mm-hmm. Maybe we got something similar going on here. I don't know, and there's a lot. It's all speculation at this point, so I don't want anyone to think that we're bringing anything inside. I think people have heard about the Ragnow and Glasgow possibility. If you haven't, well, there's a little bit of inside info here. But there's just a lot of talk and nothing to clear it up. I always thought Glasgow was good. Solid guard, a great backup for you at center if something were to happen, right? He kind of fills two pieces for you in that way, and not even making an offer. That's something.
Well, and there's a few other ways to look at it. Maybe they're really high on Bo. I can't even pronounce his last name, Bizwizzle. Maybe they're really high on him. Maybe because the word is he packed on some pounds. Maybe it was all muscle and we'll just. So I mean, maybe there's some truth to that. Maybe they have a guy. They're keyed in on a guy in free agency. Although Brisden dropped an article that was worth reading. Some of his articles are.
Wow. He's not here, obviously, Mr. Cocky Pants.
So no, but he dropped an article that it would be like it would probably send some shockwaves through the locker room if they went out and spent a lot of money on a guard, because then you'd be saying like that it was purely like a personal thing, that they didn't want Glasgow, and they didn't want a guy that, even if Ragnow, has an issue with him, you certainly haven't heard anybody else having an issue with him, and he certainly has performed well. So it would be,
and it's not like
it would have potential to cause some rifts if they went out and spent a whole bunch of money on a different guy.
And it's not like Quinn's afraid of the guys from University of Michigan, right? He seems to have a little bit of a penchant for the guys there. So I don't know.
It is very. It's all been very odd from the get-go, and I don't fully understand it. And I'm not sure that we ever will. But who knows? I'll be looking for more insight on the topic as things go along, and listen to what Graham has to say after he signs somewhere else inevitably. But I don't know.
All right, we'll keep going here. We've got one. This might be a little bit of a bitter pill for Case to swallow, but that's the best ones to watch him take down. Lions' most overpaid player going into 2020 free agency, and we actually agreed on this as we talked about this ahead of time. We kind of this was posted by Waxo in the subreddit. We both basically agreed that with Waxo, it's Jesse James. Jesse was the superstar signing for you last year. It felt really good. We picked up Hawk. It felt like we're going to have two massively dynamic tight ends that were going to completely change the way this offense functioned. And well, they did. One got injured and one couldn't catch the ball. It's not fair. I mean, he's not Ebron bad at catching the ball. He just wasn't involved in the offense that much and didn't really stand out and didn't perform at the contract he was given. What do you think of? What are you thinking going into free agency this year? I mean, we're still riding him, right? We have how much time's left on his contract?
Well, he's signed through 2023. We can cut bait after 2020, and have there'll be like a $4 million dead cap that year, 3 the next, and 1.5 the year after. So I mean, it's not but they won't cut him this year. We'll give him one more year to see if he can really produce, and if not, then it's up in the air. You all know that like I was very excited about it. It certainly didn't turn out the way I can't win all of them.
Oh my god! Now a little bit.
My plug for Andrew Billings is going in again right here. But
this is horrific. This is a train wreck out of the gate. My god! Let's just go through it.
I'm taking shots left and right.
Just work through it.
No. I mean, I was very disappointed, and it's one of those things where I'm not even really sure why he wasn't able to be more effective. His PFF score was mediocre. I think it was the worst of his career. I mean, his production was the worst of his career. The question would always remain, if Stafford had stayed healthy all year, would his production have gone up? And there's no reason to necessarily believe it would have, but there's reason to think maybe it would have, especially after Hawk, continued to miss time. So I don't know. It's really tough situation, but I mean, I definitely think we'll see one more year for sure out of him. And then we'll know, which direction it's going. So
what's going on from there? Yep. Okay. I'll take that. Jesse did not perform. He did not perform up to expectations. I'm hoping it is more symptomatic of the overall ailment of the offense after Matthew Stafford went down. If you want to know a player, you talk about quarterbacks elevating the people around them. That came up in the Slack this week. What wide receivers have gone on from the Lions and done well, right? Their career highs tend to have been in Detroit. Even Golden Tate, right? We talked about him, how well
Golden
he did
Tate,
here.
Marvin
number
Jones.
1. He's number 3 before he got here, Marvin Jones, right? Golden Tate came here. He's a number 1 since then. He's not playing like a number 1. I would say that I agree with what we, where we landed in the chat, that Matthew Stafford elevates the players around him. Him not being there likely hurt Jesse James this year. But
I'm going to talk about Ebron again later in the show, but he might be the only example of a guy who left Detroit as a receiver or running back who saw greater production somewhere else than he did in Detroit.
I thought it was similar.
It was the higher number in terms of like his production. It wasn't necessarily a better right. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't necessarily a better player. He was just getting targeted all the time because he was the only guy they had, available.
Yeah. Quick public
and obviously we know, after year 2, Colts fans are
lamenting that pick.
They're out.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick public service announcement. I saw this on Reddit. Actually, it was in the Lions subreddit. Prevention from the coronavirus. Go ahead and
here I'm touching my face and whatever. So.
Yeah, well, if you wear your Ebron jersey, you're assured you can't catch anything, right? So you should be safe. So just mark that, folks, and take heed in what you do from there. All right.
I'll wear a Reggie Bush one underneath it too.
He outrun it, but yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's talk really quick about all the great things, all the wonderful things that you can get yourself at Amazon, right? What a great place. You get everything you need, except that bald SOB is making all of that money off you guys. He's He's just going to the bank. He's just buying islands and living too high. You don't want him to do that. Let's stand up against the man and go to Amazon.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. That'll take you to Amazon, but you're taking money right out of his pocket with every purchase. Isn't that great? Isn't that what you want to do? Hold the man down, redistribute that money right into the coffers of the Detroit Lions Podcast. It's a great way to support the show by doing something you were going to do anyway. I don't know, right? It's I try to make it fun. Right?
We're trying to be non-political, but still like
fun. Just trying to have fun. So yeah, Amazon.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. It'll take you right to the site. You won't even notice that you didn't go straight to Amazon, but you are at Amazon. It just throws a cookie and it tells them to give us a cut of the profit instead of that bald bastard. So there you go. Anyone who does that, thank you. Thank you all who are doing that. We appreciate the support for the show because I know it is a couple extra keystrokes to do that. So thank you all, everyone who does that. And thank you even more to those who tell a friend. All right, let's get into it. Case has a crush, and hopefully this isn't in the realm of the Jesse James kind of world from last year, but
this will be more like Golden Tate and Marvin Jones, I promise.
Okay. So we're looking at free agency. Free agency starts on March 18th, which is the Wednesday after, the Wednesday after we record this. It's 8 days away. And we need to start kind of thinking about what does this mean and what is the effect going to be for the Lions, right? All the talk about the draft is interesting kind of thought exercise. You have the Senior Bowl, which kind of might change some stock along the way. Then you have the Combine, which shifts player stock along the way. You see Derek Brown take a hit because of his Combine performance. But it's truly free agency that makes a direct impact upon what a team's going to do in the draft. And I know, Casey, you want to talk about that. Let's start with how free agency moves might affect the Lions' draft choices, and then we'll go into some of the players.
Yeah. It's what we do, what the decisions we make in free agency, and this is, this is every year. This is nothing new, will give us a better insight into where we can start expecting. I've had a couple. I'll be humble here and say a couple lucky guesses on our draft picks the last few years on who they would be. But that I didn't make those guesses until after free agency. I didn't make those guesses until after I'd seen what we did and what positions we addressed there, because then it's pretty, you obviously you can use a process of elimination to see what's left. Mm-hmm. And so if we were to say, go after, and I know you said we'll talk about specific players later, but I mean, if we were to go after Chris Harris Jr., for example, it would be a stopgap. Okay, we'd have, two veteran cornerbacks on the outside, but I think that would reduce the chances that Okudah was our target in the draft. I don't necessarily think that's likely. If they were to spend money on an edge rusher, I think the concept that we were going after Chase Young would diminish. And if Chase Young were there at 3 and we had already spent money there, then we'd be more likely to still trade down with somebody who really wanted Chase Young, even if we wouldn't get the same kind of haul that we might if we trade down for a team going after a quarterback. But it'll be interesting to see because the team does have some needs, and this will likely affect more.
Needs, actually,
right? Quite a few. This will affect more. This will less affect who they take in the first round, because I think I think there's generally a consensus that that's down to 3, maybe 4, depending on your feelings on Brown, players in that first round. Even if we trade down. But it affects later on. Do we go after a running back in the 2nd or 3rd round? Are we looking for a replacement for Marvin Jones or Amendola long term? And if we picked up somebody like Travis Benjamin, maybe they're trying to get a few years out of him. I don't know.
Sure.
If things of that nature. So I mean, it's always. My favorite part of the offseason is free agency, just because it shows where the team still has work they need to do going into the draft. I always feel like it's much easier to predict the direction of things after that than before that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's obvious. I'm not blowing anyone's mind with that statement or anything.
You typically don't, but it's still good to level set, right? And these are some of the things some of the players we'll talk about here will lay out a foundation for how those things could happen. Let's talk a little bit quickly on the draft, because we got some stuff coming in the chat, and I want to tell folks, feel free to call us 248-782-8384. 248-782-8348, 248-782-8384, or Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word, on Skype. You can use either of those and get in touch with us, and we'll talk with you live on the show. So here's a couple things. Biggest fear from Don H. is the Lions trade lower than 5. And I don't disagree. I disagree.
I disagree.
Okay, and then let's talk about that a little bit. And then let's we got another one about Fant from the Seahawks being a nice free agent. Let's talk about how an offensive tackle might fit in this scheme. I'm not sure that that's exactly where we want to head, but and I'm not sure how up to speed you are on George Fant case. So we can kind of secondary that. So I agree with Don about trading lower than 5 because we give away Chase Young or Jeffrey Okudah by doing that, and I want one of those two guys. I really, really want one of those two guys. Those are long-term talents that absolutely change the face of the team. Trading down to 6 with the Chargers, trading down 11 with the Raiders. I forget where they are. I just don't feel good about falling down the charts like that. We picked a 10 and wound up with a tight end. I'm just not down with that. You have the top guys at your disposal at the top of the draft. There, you need to get that kind of a dude, as we talk about Wisco's dude theory. We need one of those kind of just generational types of players. Now, why are you feeling fine about moving below 5? What? Well,
because I don't ascribe to that theory. I ascribe to, overall, like, raising the overall level and not necessarily relying on a stud or 2 studs. Although, I mean, I'm not saying you don't need those guys, but we already have a couple of those guys. And I'm not saying that we don't want more. I'm just saying that if you get more draft picks in the first 2 rounds, you've got more players who can upgrade a lot of positions. And if you can upgrade a lot of positions, this draft, and I know that a lot of people will feel that this gets said, every year. And I think by some it does, but this draft has been regarded as one of the most talent rich in recent history.
A wide receiver for sure.
Well, at a lot of positions, at offensive tackle, on interior defensive line, there are some guys. But if you add enough opportunity to add more of those guys who might have potentially gone in the first round another year, you add a whole bunch of talent to the team. And I'm not saying that I don't want a Chase Young or don't want a Jeff Okudah or to a lesser extent Simmons. I would love to have one of those players. I would. And it would be very exciting. But having a bunch of guys who are all special in one way or another and can improve a lot of the things that this team does in maybe not in the monumental way that a single guy can, but in lots of smaller ways, I'm not opposed to that at all. It's all about value. It's as long as we get the right value for doing it, I have no problem with doing it.
Yeah, and so my thinking on this is, especially where we are right now in the draft and where we are in the talent build in this team, one of the things that Bob Quinn's been trying to do is build a team around improving the talent across the board, right? We forever had no depth, or we have Calvin and Sue and Stafford and couldn't pay anybody else and had crap players. We've spent the last couple of years raising the generalized talent of the team across the board, and now is when I think you bring, to use the phrase, the dudes in, those
I won't
star
disagree
players,
with that
chance
concept.
to push yourself over the top. Hey, we have a caller. Caller, what's your name? How many you had?
Hey, this is Chris Starr again.
Oh, you're tanked. Okay, what's up, Chris? How you doing?
Pretty good. How about you guys?
We're doing all right.
All right.
So, yeah, today I've been doing a lot of my scouting and stuff the last few weeks. That's one of the reasons I haven't been able to call in. Been grinding my boards and everything like that. And I just wanted to give a shout-out to one guy who really caught my eye. His name is Michael Pittman from USC. He's a wide receiver, and he is very impressive to me. And one of the things that I really like about him is that he seems to have a real nice combination of checking all of the boxes. Most of the time in this draft, you have guys who either have the production or have the athletic traits or have the technical refinement. Yep. And for me, he really stood out because he was one of those guys that's able to kind of fill all those boxes. Multi-time captain, has the character, has the leadership, has the production in a big school, played with 3 different quarterbacks this year, still had a ton of catches, ton of yards, able to make plays after the catch, has the technical ability, able to create a little bit of separation, but most importantly has the hands. I think he had the best catch rate in his class, and also has the athleticism. I believe he had 9+ RAS score at the combine. So he's able to really check off all those boxes for me. And bonus is for a guy that we might not need right away with Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones. He has experience as a vice on special teams. So he's able to contribute in that way as well, beyond just the potential for adding a receiver, which is really, really nice to see for me.
He's a big dude, too, 6'4".
Yep.
So, I mean, if we're...
kind of mold that we've been building here.
There is a possibility. There is a possibility. I know this is going to make some fans upset, but I mean, there is this real scenario where after 2019, or actually, after 2020, we have none of Amendola, Marvin Jones, or Kenny Galladay. I know that's going to piss some people off, even just hearing me say that. But I do think, there is a need long term in that position, even if we end up keeping 1 or 2 of those guys around. So.
Yep. And yeah, of those guys, Kenny's the only one I think that's signed through next year. So there's a good chance that we lose at least Marvin and Amendola. Yep.
Yeah. No, there's absolutely, and I think wide receivers, as I said earlier, are super deep in this draft. I'm looking the 3rd round before we even pick one up. I think that Okudah, Young, kind of one of those 2 in the beginning, and then depending on where you go in the draft, right, which drives that, you may look for the opposite kind of player beyond that to help shore it up. You may be looking for an offensive guard as well, depending on Glasgow and what happens in free agency, and so we'll have to see how that plays out. But I think you're looking at 3rd round to 4th round before you start picking up wide receivers. But based on where we picked up Galladay and how well Quinn has scouted those, I'm okay with that at this point. I'm feeling okay.
And yeah, I talked about this on a previous episode a while ago, but this staff has a lot of receiver scouts, or guys who played receiver or have a history of scouting receivers on our staff. I was going through our front office, and I believe 3 or 4 of our executive guys underneath Quinn either played receiver, coached receiver, or have history of finding receivers in the draft. So just a very interesting skill set from that standpoint. And it's also the position that the Patriots historically are the worst at drafting. I believe they were 32nd in receiver drafting in terms of success rate or something like that.
It's because they're always drafting.
So it's really weird. Yeah, it's really weird that they have that kind of failure typically historically in finding these receivers. But then obviously Quinn helps make up for that with his ability to bring in guys underneath him who are strong in that area. So, and it seems to have worked out so far.
And I think the other part of it is when you have a team that wins like they did, the Patriots, that is, you can get that veteran talent to come in at a good rate because they want that ring, and that's a big piece of that. But you've got to build that first team. You've got to get that first team to get over the hump to make people want to come. That includes building the culture. That includes a lot of pieces. So we'll have to see how it all comes together in that regard. But this kind of leads towards that discussion of, do they get 1 more year or do they get 2 more years? And I think they're getting 2, barring an absolute catastrophe this year. But that's for another future conversation.
And yeah, even our coaching and development, Robert Prince has done a fantastic job with most of these guys too. And you guys did the interview with him in Mobile, and talked about how he's able to help build that culture and that work ethic, and going back to Calvin and those guys. So I think that probably helps a little bit too, because the last real big name receiver that the Patriots had was probably Randy Moss, right?
Yep.
Or unless actually Wes Welker and Amendola and the slot guys. But
so
I think that kind of plays into it. Well, I mean, before, when Quinn and Patricia were there. But yeah, so I think that whole kind of culture and factor, that kind of plays into it a little bit too. And having a guy of that caliber, for those of you guys who didn't see that interview on YouTube, check that out. that you guys did.
Robert Prince.
But,
and I'll tell you what, that's one of the things that kind of backs up exactly what Coach Font said about the players in the locker room. The story that Robert Prince told in our interview about Calvin Johnson coming in and not being I want the ball guy and demanding the ball. And when Burleson showed up and it was like, oh, I can't be screaming for the ball. And when Golden Tate shows up, oh, if he's not saying I need the ball, I can't say I need the ball. Like, one man completely changed the culture of how that wide receiver room acted about getting the ball. And that's why I think the converse is true as well. One person can be very, very toxic to a room and change the thinking and the mindset. That's why, look, I'm not saying that Graham Glasgow is a bad guy at all, right? But if I think about that in the context of what's going on, he just may not be a fit. There could be a personality thing, and there's just sometimes there's people you don't get along with. Case and I absolutely hate each other outside the show. I mean, it's like cats and dogs. We'd have divorced years ago if we weren't becoming millionaires here. But more realistically, there's just certain people you don't get along with. You know what I mean? And no matter how much you try, they rub you the wrong way, you rub them the wrong way. And in a highly competitive environment like this, those things just can't. Those situations just can't work. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's something like that that's going on, and that's the reasoning behind it. I know we say we're all professionals and we got to get over it, but if you think through your work life, there's someone in there that you just cannot stand, that just drives you insane, and you aren't talking multi-million-dollar weekly on the line, right? This is a really, really big deal. So I think it's more impactful than you get in a normal place. So I don't want to undervalue that stuff.
And even at the offensive line, like, that's probably one of the positions other than maybe quarterback where that kind of communication and teamwork aspect is probably most important.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to keep in mind too, is it's not just like defensive back where you're just covering your guy and doing your job. There's a lot more to it than that on the OL, where there's like, you have to worry about the guy next to you on both sides too.
How funny would it be if we heard that it was Graham Glasgow that was sending out the Matthew Staffords wanting a trade rumors and all that kind of stuff? I'm not saying it's true, but I'm just saying, hey, wouldn't that be fun?
All right, Chris, you got anything else for us?
Yeah. That was the main thing. I just wanted to get that receiver talking a little bit. And this is, like you guys were saying before I called in, this is a really nice receiver class in particular. So
I will go take a closer look at Michael Pittman on your recommendation here. So
even if we had one at 35 or like the back end of like the first round or something like that, like, I would not be upset or mad. Like, this is a fantastic class. Definitely happy to have a lot of these guys on our team next year.
Awesome. All right, Christopher, we're going to let you go. We're going to keep rocking here. Thanks for calling in as usual, my friend. And if anyone doesn't know, Chris is our audience ombudsman. So if he'll keep us straight in the chat if we go off the rails here. Thanks a lot, Chris. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Yep, sounds good. Love you guys.
Cheers.
Talk to you later.
All right, brother. All right, we'll take your calls. 782. I got to give you the area code. 248-782-8384. 248-782-8384. You give us a call, or Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word, if you want to do it via Skype. So continuing on the free agency, let's talk now. There's this guy, Billings, right? Billings, or is it Billingham? How do you say that? Who's this guy that you are madly in love with? Bizwizzle, that's it. I thought he was an offensive lineman.
Oh, yeah, no, I brought it up before. I really like Andrew Billings for us as a long-term replacement for Snacks. I don't think that he's going to light the world on fire, but he is absolutely the kind of guy that would give us the consistency at the nose tackle position that would allow for all the good things that we really saw when Snacks first showed up to happen. He probably not quite as dominant as Snacks managed to be that second half of that season, but much more consistent than he ended up being this last year. And it just allows them to rush, three guys and still put some pressure on when you don't have to worry about things going up the middle. And you can stand that up real tight and don't give the quarterback a place to, flush into, and aren't allowing teams to run up the middle against you, which is, God, that's the most demoralizing thing. And affordable. Because now there are a few other guys that could also be an answer to that long term. Javon Hargrave would be a possibility out of Pittsburgh. But for value compared to what he brings in his fit, I think that he is truly my guy this year. And it seems like I've gotten pretty fortunate with the guys I really like being the guys they've ended up picking up. Even if I wasn't, right about Jesse James being the stud that I wanted him to be, I feel like I'm in Bob Quinn's head just a little bit as far as free agency goes.
Really? You feel like you're in his head?
I've had a good track record of kind of guessing where he might go, but
Andrew Billings. Love letters from Case.
So,
dear Andrew, I really want you to become a Detroit Lion. I think you could really make a big difference here. And that's what Bob's thinking. Love, Case. P.S. Don't forget to send me a letter because I love you.
There's other guys too that, if they decided to go running back, I mean, it could be a case where they even went after somebody like a Melvin Gordon. I don't think that's likely.
I don't either. I think it's just far too expensive.
Right. And I think that, there was actually somebody said something in the subreddit about when will they posted an article, and I don't even remember where the article was from, but the article, said, when are the Lions going to finally stop ignoring the running back position? And, I think that's maybe I'm being pedantic about it, but they haven't ignored the running back position. They've used several second rounders, Kerryon Johnson, being the latest example, Amir Abdullah and Javad Best and LaShore. It's not like they haven't tried to really create a long-term, positive running back situation. It just hasn't been successful to this point.
Well, and running back position is a little different than it used to be in the NFL anyway, right? You don't spend a first-round pick on a running back. Yeah, I don't care who you are in the NFL. It's a waste, and it's a less used position, and the value at that position isn't as high. I think the fall back from player to player is less in that position as well. I mean, you've seen us run a lot of guys. Bo Scarborough look great here, right? I mean, I think he's going to continue to look good because it's dependent on so many other things in the offense. And and like I said, the gap is thinner between those folks, and I think that devalues all of them as a position.
There was other possibilities. Obviously, Patricia's history with Kyle Van Noy makes him an interesting prospect, but I doubt that at this point, just because I think there's going to be a few other teams that are going to really be going heavy after him, and somebody's going to overpay him. So I don't expect Kyle Van Noy to be back. Malcolm Butler, also former Patriot here. If we wanted to add safety depth, that would be a possibility. I've actually, I've suggested Clinton Dix before the last time he was a free agent. Again, I don't really think it's a likelihood. I've never, outside of Billings, I'm not sure I've had a free agency period where the Lions had money to spend, but I really couldn't pinpoint where I thought they were going to go. You could do a Jamie Collins or something like that. Once again, another Patriot, and I realize that's going to get obnoxious if all I'm looking at is former Patriots, but guys who would fit the scheme, which obviously is an issue, is fitting into the scheme here. So there are players out there that are possibilities, but I'm just not completely sold because there aren't a lot of players out there who have the perfect fit of age and value and positional, relevance to us. That's a tough combination to come by, and I don't see as many of them in this draft that stick out to me as clearly as I have maybe the last few years.
Yeah. Not bad. Okay, so that's a good one. Mr. Billings, love letters from Case is a good one. What about Chris Harris Jr.? You want to talk a little bit about him and how he might fit? I do want to, in the meantime, say Publix delivery, Instacart is pretty freaking amazing. They're bringing me. I'm running low on my alcohol, and I would normally go get it myself, but I'm here for you folks to support you with our wonderful podcast. So let's all hail to alcohol delivery services across the nation. Thank you. All right,
cheers.
You can help us sustain that habit through the super chat. Hit the little $sign below and give a brief donation. Help support our bad habits. Okay, Chris Harris Jr. What did you have on him, Case? I know you wanted to talk about him as a possibility.
Well, it's
and
just
how he might affect the draft.
like I said, it's just a possibility of if we brought him in, it would be on a 2-year deal probably. I've seen success out of veteran quarterbacks. Cornerbacks, excuse me. They're not always going to have the physical attributes that some of the younger guys will have, but we've obviously seen Chris Harris play at a consistently high level through almost his entire career. So you'd be able to plug him in at the number 2, and this is assuming Slay is still here this year. And then you're basically going to have to tear everything down. And you'd hope that Aruarie, takes his next step, because I think there is a lot of value there, potential value there out of Aruarie. But after this year, you'd essentially be assuming that you're going to have to start from scratch.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Aruarie is going to be just the guy. He's going to be a great cornerback. I just have a lot of his as he grew, and at the end of last year, his play was really, really stepping up. Loved what I saw out of a first year guy. That's why I like the Aruarie Okudah kind of combo, because you got Okudah's a guy that can start year 1 and play well, but you have Darius Slay for that first year to help bring him up. But you think about what the cost of your cornerbacks are in year 2, 3, and 4 with Slay gone and Okudah on a rookie, Aruarie on a rookie deal. I mean, that gives you a lot of room to play with the rest of your roster and spend some money. And I really love the idea of that, because those are key positions on this defense. And that's where my head's at for the draft. I know Chase Young if he's there, you take him over Okudah every day. But Chris
wish
does change that calculus pretty quick for you, though.
Yeah, what I really wish while looking at this free agency was that there was a wide receiver, like either slot or outside, that I really liked as a long-term solution, a long-term like a short-term depth guy, long-term solution at either outside or in the slot, and I just don't really see anyone who fits that. Like I said, Travis Benjamin is out there. I liked him as a possibility before we got Marvin Jones, even though I was definitely leaning towards Marvin Jones, but I thought Travis Benjamin was a possibility coming from the Browns before he went to the Chargers. Emmanuel Sanders is out there, but he's ancient. I don't think that's, that there's no long-term value in that for us. Not that Travis Benjamin is young either. So, it's kind of a bleak landscape if that's a thing that we want to improve on.
Yeah. In the chat, we got one. This is an interesting one, and I just want you to get you to weigh in on it a little bit with me. Anne-Marie Jonkman comes in with pay money for talent, limit risk. I'm 100% on board with it right now. Pay for past performance, and I'm gonna disagree pretty big right there. Because I don't think it's about the past performance. It's future performance that you're paying for. There's nothing worse than signing a big contract on somebody that did great things before they signed that contract, but went to sleep once that's
never happened to us.
Scored the big money. Yeah, and this is the part that goes with the limit risk piece that Anne Marie was talking about, right? But it has to be about paying for the performance you expect in the future,
right?
And this is the magic of negotiation and contracts. The players, I think, get a little hurt with the limitations around the rookie contracts, where they're going to show their stuff, right?
Yeah.
But they're just going to get rookie pay scale for that. It's that first contract after the rookie contract where, if they've shown their stuff, that they can make the money for that future performance, and use their past performance as an indicator. But when you look at a guy like Darius Slay, we got him for one more year. I wouldn't renegotiate with him ahead of this year. After that, he's on the wrong side of 30. You know what happens with corners there. Do you pay him a record cornerback deal for a guy who is, by all accounts, going to decline? I love Slay. I've said it every time we talk about this. I love him to death. But I just can't see breaking the bank to pay a guy that Hedebo was a guy we talked about like that. Who was it just now that just came through? It was Snacks came through, wanted the big money, signed the big deal, and then fell through the floor right with performance. These guys try to get that last big deal, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. But you just hate to tie up money on talent that's not going to perform.
Well, we all remember DeAndre Levy as well. So.
Yes, we do.
That one you were frustrated by that one, like deeply frustrated by that one.
Yes, I was. I don't even know that I let it all out in the show. I think I held back a little bit. No, you're right. But the future talent prospect has worked out so well. I get you, Anne Marie. I'm not going to fully argue. That's where the limit risk and doing their research really plays out. But what is it? It's not super high. What was it? Oh God, the stat Ash had this. Ash is amazing in the Slack with the stats he pulls out. When you pick a player. Like, I'm just going to pick a number just to make sense here because I can't say it like Ash did. If you pick player A at 5 and then you could have picked player B and they pick player B at 6, it's literally a coin toss, a flip 50-50 whether player A or player B is better, as they've shown throughout the years. So people get really, really worked up on that, but it's absolutely a shot in the dark on whether when you do a Okuda versus Chase Young thing, right? It's a 50-50 coin flip on whether you beat the right guy first or last. So whatever. Well,
especially, I mean, a huge part of that being injuries, and you never know who's going to get hurt. So, the one other guy, and this one would be intriguing, but I don't think it's not going to happen now that we've re-signed Amendola. But I would have loved to have seen us go out and grab Randall Cobb on like a 3-4 year deal for our slot receiver. But like I said, re-signing Amendola probably puts the kibosh. He's actually he's younger than I expect him to be. Hang on a second.
Really? Okay, yeah, no, because my expectation is that he's like 31 or 32, a grizzled veteran on the downswing of a career. But that's just my sense of seeing him in Green Bay forever.
Right. He was so young. He's only 29.
My goodness. Okay.
He's got, what is he?
He looked great in Dallas. He looked great. He became a great number 3.
He's a 9-year vet and he's only 29. So he started pretty young.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, hey, we gotta tell you really quick about the draft party. Remember that case? Remember doing those?
I don't remember it at all.
That's because of the alcohol delivery. Every year we do the live draft party, doing it just like we're doing on YouTube now as we record these shows. Come on down, head on over to DetroitLionsPodcast.com on draft day. We will do a full first round draft party. Case and I will go pick by pick, and you never know. And we may pick 3, we may pick 5, but there's nothing saying we don't pick 18 or 25 or other trades happen further. It's a great time. We have a lot of fun. We bring in some good guests. Usually Blandino is one of the guys we talk to. Some other folks we've had Orlovsky on and so on. We bring some people into the show, talk about the draft, talk about the Lions, where they're at, and what's going on in the draft. It's really, really fun. It's a great time. And it's a great way to avoid the coronavirus because you're not going out and hanging out with all these sticky-fingered people eating chicken wings and sneezing on. I was at a work event. Someone was sneezing over the cookies and stuff. I was like, I want a cookie, but not that bad. It was horrible. I was like, you got to throw those out. You don't want to get yourself into that situation. Stay home, hang out with the boys, get your alcohol delivered, maybe order a pizza, watch the draft with us, and you're guaranteed to have a great time. We have a lot of fun with that. The Detroit Lions Podcast Draft Party. It will be live doing the draft on day 1. We will also do day 2, rounds 2 and 3 of the draft. So join us and have a good time. It's a lot of fun, and we always have some good stuff for you guys in store. So we'll do some prizes and some other stuff, and we're also going to get ready here to fire up the St. Jude thing shortly. It's just been a lot going on. I was concerned I might have to move again here, but we may have cut that one off the pass, so we'll be able to get this thing going. All right, we got that going. I want to talk about a post in the subreddit by a guy named Foreman, and it's entitled, I thought I'd hold my season tickets for life. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want to tell you the gist of it. Guys, he goes to the game with his dad, who's 70. They've had tickets since the Silver Dome. They were on a waiting list 2 years for Ford Field before they finally got them. Kept supporting them. 0-16 year. They moved up a bunch, but been moving up every year. And they got a call from the Lions about their tickets, saying that from a guy named Tim, who's a little bit aggressive, and saying, "Hey, you guys didn't use all the tickets. You sold them. You sold a bunch of the tickets from the game. You only went to 2 games with your season tickets, and you sold the rest over on Ticket Exchange." And they went on to talk about everything that happened in this whole conversation. I'm just astounded. Okay, and let me take it from the team's perspective first. Okay, I get that the team wants to sell tickets to Lions fans. They're going to be in the seats. The Dallas game, when we were there, Sandman got the suite. We did the suite life. It was embarrassing to hear the Cowboys fans out cheer Lions fans like 90 to 90-1. It was horrific. It was horrifying. It was terrible to see, and it was just suck the wind out of you as a Lions fan. So I get the team's perspective that they don't want to sell off all those tickets to non-Lions fans. Okay, sure, especially to a team that travels as well as the Cowboys do. But to call these guys up, they bought those tickets, right? Those tickets are their property at that point. They can buy, sell, do whatever they want, right? They own those tickets. For the Lions to to have flagged their account and act like they're not going to allow them to have season tickets because they sold them off, to me is unconscionable. Especially as they've been around for so long as season ticket holders. What an absolutely terrible business move to have.
Maybe they had a health crisis going on, and you'd like.
They did.
They weren't able to go to the games.
Yeah, they live in Grand Rapids or across the state. Dad had a heart procedure done. He's lost a step. They had all these things going on. But the team to be aggressive and phone harass, much less a 3-12-1 team doing that, right? It's like, wow. Let's woe it back there, folks. Let's woe that back.
I don't like that at all.
Unhealthy way to treat the people who spend lots of money on what's been, frankly, a mediocre product. All right, let's treat people with the respect they deserve. That one, I read that story, and I'm sure there's a side that you don't get because everyone tells their side of the story, right? But that was that one just really rubbed me the wrong way. You don't treat the people, especially the big money spending people, who treat your organization well like that. That's just outside the lines of okay. And flagging accounts because people sell no, they bought that. Nobody's going to flag me because I buy a new car every 6 months and sell it. I don't, by the way. But nobody's, because that's my car, right? I own that. It's the same thing with these tickets. It's the same thing with a computer. It's the same thing with whatever the hell you buy and sell. That's ugly. That's ugly. That's a bad look. Way worse than any of the stuff with Glasgow or the players or the Calvin Johnson bonus payment, all that. You don't treat the fans like that. That somebody in the front office needs to get a quick turnaround on that and get that taken care of yesterday, because that is dumb. That is dumb.
Yeah,
business.
I don't like that at all.
So, all right, sorry, I just want to talk about that really quick though. If you still want to support the team after such a folly, gone over to fanatics.DetroitLionsPodcast.com.
Your segues are getting better and better.
Yeah.
Like aging like milk over here.
It's like whiplash, right? Snapping the neck from one side to the other. But you may want to say, you know what? Now that happened, I'm not going to buy a Lions jersey. I'm going to go get a Red Wings sweater. It's spring training. We got some baseball stuff going on. I want to get a baseball jersey. Head on over to fanatics.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. It's just like the Amazon one. Takes you over to Fanatics, which is the biggest sports store in the world. With your memorabilia, your gear, your officially branded sporting gear, college, professional, all the leagues, all the sports, you name it, it's out there. You like Premier League stuff, it's there. All that stuff. Head on over Fanatics.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. And they give us a kickback from everything you buy. Is a great way to support the show by doing something you were going to do anyway. If you want to support the show directly and check out some of the merch, I was holding some up earlier while Chris was talking. We got some wicked new clear stickers that show up there. You can't see it, but since 2015, that DLP one, we got these other stickers here. Look at these stickers. Well, this one's a pretty cool one. I like it. It's a little small, but I think you get larger size ones as well.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, and then we got some other good stuff. Shirts, really cool T-shirts. I think you guys will like some FTP shirts, some other stuff. Go on over to DetroitLionsPodcast.com and go to the merch store, and there's all kinds of great stuff there to help support the show. That's the way to support the show directly, and of course the super chat and the YouTube. All right. With all that, we talked about a lot of stuff here, Case. There was something in particular that I want to talk about, and in order to do that, I need to pull out my very, very favorite drop, where you will take us around. Love that.
All right. Settle down, everyone. Calm down. We'll.
I love that drop. I love that drop more than anything, man.
All right. So it's been a minute, and I've just been kind of percolating on various NFC North related things.
Yep.
For a while now.
Yep.
Now that I have some off season to look back on, and I've heard some rumors and had a chance to kind of look at look at various situations. No, I'm also picking perfect timing for this because a lot of this is going to change in the next couple of weeks as free agency happens. But before we hit free agency, at least we can get kind of an overview, and then we'll update it, after the dust has settled.
Okay.
So maybe you'll switch things up and start at the top of the division with the Packers. Looking back at their 2019 season from a statistical standpoint through that lens, they overachieved in terms of their win record compared to the statistics that you would generally expect. That'll happen. It's not a huge surprise, but they won a lot of close games. Their point differential was not what you'd expect the point differential of a team that won that many games to be, and that tends to be a very good indicator of future regression. Not necessarily in terms of how good or bad a team is, but in terms of how many wins they're likely to have. That tends to be a pretty strong indicator. Mm-hmm. You had them, like I said, you had them winning a lot of close games, and that is a tough thing to sustain from year to year. So you'd expect a little bit of a change in that. They were also extremely healthy, and you'll remember me talking last year about the Bears, and that they were one of, if not the healthiest team in the league. That helped lead to them to the season that they had, the outrageous win number that they had, and that was likely to come crashing back down. Well, a similar thing happened to the Packers this last year. They didn't have a lot of injuries. There was a couple problems with their receiving core, but like on defense, their studs played, everything. So that would be one area that you would also expect this next year for them to dip. Their turnover differential was much more favorable compared to their wins than what you would expect it to be. They don't. Now, here's what I'll say. Aaron Rodgers doesn't turn the ball over very much. So, that's probably not going to change. And as a result, their turnover differential is usually going to be a positive for them. It was a little bit...
I'm sorry, Case. I have to jump in there. You're absolutely right that he doesn't turn the ball over much. But he throws the ball downfield all the time and pulls freaking pass interference penalties to get himself out of a third and long or a bad stop.
I won't argue with that.
That is an amazing talent. I freaking hate it. It drives me insane because we see him twice a year, and at least once a year he does that to us. I get that. But it's how does he keep getting away with it, right? I mean, it drives me insane.
Believe me, yes.
It doesn't feel like football. It feels like game in the game. That and the quick snap to get 12 men on the field. I get it's part of the game. It just feels cheesy. It feels
it's always been
weak and sorry.
It makes you understand. It makes you understand how AFC East fans feel about the Patriots because they're always pulling shit that's like. So when they do have like something minor, that like the Deflategate and things like that, like they really want to pile onto that thought train just because they want some excuse for all the ways that they've been destroyed, and it's tough. It's not an easy thing and fun thing. Now,
it's absolutely triggering.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Go ahead. Sorry. Really,
no, you're totally right. Okay. So having said all these things, having like statistically, I would expect them to regress. Mm-hmm. Having said that, we're just talking about him, and I know that it's cliche, but it is, Rodgers and whether or not he's healthy. And he keeps saying he wants to play forever, basically.
The chat.
But oh, yeah.
We need someone who can snap his collarbone again. It's funny, but it's horrible.
Part of the game. Part of the game.
Yeah, it's the best part of the game. That's not me talking. I'm sorry.
But he keeps saying that he wants to play, for a long time, whatever. But he has shown signs of aging. He is no longer as mobile as he used to be. He is also how consistently he can stay healthy is now a true and real question mark. So whether or not they repeat as the top of the division hinges so much on him and his health, both in the long-term age sense and in the acute sense of not getting banged up. It'll be interesting to see with Brian Bulaga probably not returning, what they do with their offensive line situation, whether they chase that in free agency or whether or not that's is it Josh Jones? I might be getting the name wrong. Offensive tackle has been projected them by quite a few mock drafts. The other issue is that outside of Devontae Adams, he's got crap for receivers right now. And he still made that work. He still doesn't throw interceptions barely at all, even with bad receivers. But you're going to limit, unless they can go out and address that aggressively this offseason. And once again, free agency is probably not going to, result in that. So the other big thing that you're going to see in mock drafts for the Packers is wide receiver, the Jeff Judys and that kind of thing of the world. That is a highly likely scenario that they go out and try to do something to improve his situation in the pass game. Unfortunately, I don't think they're likely to see much regression on defense, and they do have enough money, not a ton of money, not as much as the Lions. Not that the Lions have a ton of money. The Lions are all almost like league average, and the Packers are somewhat behind that. But they have the second most money in the division. They have enough to do a little bit, and we'll see. We'll see what they make out of that. But I still think that you have to look at them going into the season as the team to beat in the NFC North, but there are definitely things that could derail them, especially offensively, things that could easily derail them if they can't protect Aaron Rodgers and if they can't get weapons for Aaron Rodgers. They won't be the perfect team by any means.
Agreed. Okay. Well, we there's always the collarbone.
Right.
Chat kills me. Go ahead.
So,
Case.
okay.
Don't worry about me. We'll keep going.
No,
keep
it's
rolling.
all right. It's all right. I wanted to give you the opportunity if you had anything else to jab in there. So, all right,
No,
Vikings.
I'll tell you the one thing is I just can't right now even think about the Packers. Like we've said and we continue to say, they are now going to be active in free agency where they weren't before. They're now taking a whole
which is still bizarre
tack.
to me. Absolutely bizarre. I still haven't got my head wrapped fully around that.
No,
but
hopefully they come into this, as amateurs at it, and make all those amateur mistakes and fail miserably. I mean,
they didn't last year, unfortunately.
Stop! Don't take me down. Okay, I'm having a hard enough time right now. I would really just love to see them just fail miserably, and it's due, right? I mean, look, if you believe in regression to the mean, they're due for like 40 years of just horrid play. You don't get 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a row. Nobody gets that. And you're not allowed. It's just like, this is like they got a voodoo doll. Now, what's crazy is what have they gotten out of that? 2 Super Bowls?
Right.
That's really not.
So I mean, they've underachieved their to what they should have had, but winning Super Bowls isn't easy.
What?
But I think even at the win record they had last year, even at the high win record they had last year, we kind of saw it. Us as division rival fans, we watched their games. We knew that they weren't all that in a bag of chips. They were just some of that, and
some tater tots,
some pita bread. I don't know.
Yeah. Some hummus and carrots.
It wasn't like the full package. You know what I mean.
I wanted Cheetos. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Okay, take us to Minnesota. Make us feel better.
We'll go to Minnesota.
Land of the hype.
I'm 15 minutes away from Minnesota. All right, let's go there.
Land of the awesomely overpaid quarterback with guaranteed money.
Yeah. Well, and that is an interesting situation that they will have to cross. Not this offseason, although there is possibility that they could, decide on an extension. There's
a pinch this
because
year, though.
They are desperate for cap money. They are one of the worst teams in the league in terms of available cap money. They have a few starters that they're going to have to deal with one way or the other. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see if they decide to make the long-term give on Kirk Cousins. And I'm not sure that I can fault them for doing so, because even though he is, at best a low-end top 10 quarterback, at worst a below average franchise quarterback. He's consistent. And he doesn't make a ton of mistakes. And when they have put good weapons around him, which they generally have been able to do, especially this last year, he's performed how you'd expect him to perform. He has a lot of I see some similarities to Andy Dalton. If you remember Andy Dalton in the years, well, yeah, you if you remember what Andy Dalton did, we'll talk about Andy Dalton again in a minute when we get to the Bears. But if you remember what he did with the Bengals in the years that they had A.J. Green and Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu and one of the best offensive lines and a good run game. He was able to put up some gaudy statistics and people started talking, is he an MVP candidate? Well, no, he really wasn't. He was just surrounded by really good talent, and the Vikings were able to do that for Kirk Cousins last year.
I remember the days of the Red Rifle. That boy could sling a ball. Sit down.
It's like a Red Dead Redemption storyline here. Side quest.
Let me tell you a tale about the Red Rifle. If you remember.
So
Andy
it's going to be
Dalton,
difficult. I'm going to rein this in. All right. So at least
yarn about the Red Rifle.
I give up.
Sorry, go ahead.
You ready? You good? You got anything? If you got anything else, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm good.
All right. Okay.
Like you wouldn't believe. All right, I'm done. I'm done for sure this time. I promise. Andy Dalton.
So at least on paper, like the Vikings are going to have a really difficult time improving this offseason. But at the same time, you can look. They got a third rounder comp pick, and they have got a couple extra seventh rounders. Not that I care much about seventh rounders. They don't have they have better draft capital than I think anybody else. But the Lions. Wait a second, I'm trying to remember. I think maybe the Packers got some good comp picks too. I'll have to
Andy Dalton
check on that. I hate comp picks, by the way. Can I? I'm going to sidetrack momentarily. I hate comp picks.
Yeah.
I hate comp picks.
God, yeah.
I think they're the most.
There's a whole boatload of them this year.
They don't make sense in the modern NFL. The whole reason behind them was an act of trying to create parity, but now all it is the really good teams. And I'm not suggesting those really good teams are doing like anything wrong. It's just a institutional issue. Those good teams are just
32 picks
picking up too many extra. I mean, New England is just raking in compensatory picks, and that's great, wonderful, good for everyone.
10 third round compensatory picks. Think about that. That's a third of the picks just inserted, and you're dropping a third of the fourth round lower because of those picks dropping at the end of the third round. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it just and like my reaction to my hatred for comp picks is probably an overreaction. I just don't think it doesn't make any sense in the way that they've become used and abused in the NFL to keep them around, especially and there was the whole big deal about them being tradable. Last year or the year before, I don't remember which year it started, and that's just making them more valuable and more. I don't think they make sense. So that being said, okay, Vikings have mediocre draft, capital. They have a late first round pick, and they have, I think, most of their regular picks. So they're in good shape there. But they're going to have to use those to fill the gaps that they're losing in free agency because you're likely to see Harris gone, their safety, and if they do that, they pretty much have to re-sign Sendejo, and Sendejo is on the decline. So. The worst we've ever seen Harrison Smith, was when they had to ask him to do too much.
Yes.
And that is a possibility that we would see again, is if they have to ask him to do too much, he can do everything well. But if you have to try to ask him to do everything all the time, you're not going to get the best performance out of him that you can get out of him. So that is an issue that they will have to address. Everson Griffin is likely to be gone. He'll be an interesting guy to track this offseason. Had a decent, number of sacks this year, despite the, personal reasons, games missed early in the year. So he'll be an interesting guy to see what happens with him. And Alexander, their slot corner, is a potential to retire. He's also a free agent. Mackenzie Alexander, he was solid for them. And I'm not sure whether or not they have someone quite as good as him to replace him. So they are going to have to use those picks in an attempt to fill some of these holes that are left by starters. There's also a good chance that they would. I mean, it's almost a given that they're cutting Xavier Rhodes because he had a terrible year and is costing them too much money. They are possibly going to cut Linval Joseph. He's a really solid player, but he's just costing them a lot of money. And if they really need that money, that's one place they can go to get it. That leaves a lot of holes on the team to fill, especially on the defense. Now, I'll be surprised if their defense drops to below average this year, even at that. But average, if they drop to average, that might not be the most surprising thing in the world, even though I think Mike Zimmer is a very good defensive coach.
It's just been such a fearsome defense for so many years. I would love to see them revert to the mean, regress to the mean, average or worse. But
it'll be interesting to see. We'll see. And they have some long-term needs on the offense, but short-term, they've still got a relatively consistent unit. They're probably ditching Pat Elflein, so they need a new center.
I think they do with Andy Dalton.
So they probably need a new center. So there's that too. But overall, I think their offense is likely to be consistent. You've got, really good wide receivers. They need long-term solutions at the wide receiver position, especially because Diggs is probably out of there after this year. And there is even potential that he could be traded still. Obviously, he's got, he's one of the most dramatic guys in the league right now. Mm-hmm. So there's that. But I would still say that I would expect it. If Dalvin Cook stays healthy, which is not a given, given his history, but if he stays healthy for 16 games, 17 games,
17 weeks,
he provides the consistency for them that they need, and they can still have a very ball control oriented offense that gives you big plays from time to time. I think the defense, even if it regresses to average, the offense is enough to hold them up where they're still a team where you'd expect them to have a winning record, even if it's not a great winning record, like a 9-11 wins, and probably, they'll be in contention for the division. They're more likely a wild card type team, but they feel like we're going to keep going back to the Bengals. It's like the Bengals for so long.
Like who was the quarterback?
I've been calling it Bengals-itis. Bengals-itis.
I don't remember the quarterback. Who was it?
They kept making the playoffs like every year for so long, but they couldn't quite get over the hump. And there's another connection there with Mike Zimmer having been with the Bengals at that time. Mm-hmm. But they just couldn't ever quite get over the hump. And I think that it's possible that the Vikings have entered that stage of their existence where every year they're going to be a tough team to play, and you're going to have a tough time beating them, but they're not going to be able to hold up to the elite teams whenever it comes to the playoffs. So that's kind of where I see them over this year and
from another sport. And this is where I don't see the Packers being this team. But if I go back and think of the NHL, and when the Red Wings were making their rise to the dynastic times, it was the Colorado Avalanche. They were a great team that we continue to play, and we just had to beat them in order to really launch ourselves in the playoffs and find success. And it was the year, there's some great stuff out there. We've talked about the different documentaries on them, but when they came out that year and wound up beating Claude Lemieux's ass and a couple other things, there was a point where there was this success after beating our heads. We'd win, we'd lose. It was really even, but we came out on top, and there was a sense that when we did it that time, this time was for good. We beat them down, and we overcame, and it was like they're behind us now. We've overcome, and I feel like that's where the Minnesota Vikings are in the Lions world right now. The Packers are going to be the Packers all the time. Right, but it's a team like, and I think we got a sense of, hey, we've beat them a lot, home and away. Now I think we still lose here and there. There's the games this year that we never were behind in regulation, and I get that, but I think the Vikings and the strength of that team and the toughness that they play with, when we get to that point where we beat them, and there's going to be a sense that we have actually conquered them, and we'll own them for the next couple of years. I think that's the point when you're going to see that kind of launch of the Lions playoff runs and that kind of greatness.
I would agree with
team.
that.
This is the team that we really need to continually own and get that sense of ownership on. And I don't mean it from a a heckling kind of place. There's just a sense that you feel it. You know when your team is taking that step over another team, and I think this is going to be a real kind of bellwether for the Lions.
Yep, I agree with that. I think that's a good point. Okay, so we'll move on to the Bears. Lastly,
you need the Russian 5 in the Lions. 5 Russians, we can take it.
Right.
The Russian quarterbacks are big in the league right now.
The Bears, the only people it seems who didn't see the regression from the Bears coming last year was Bears fans. Like everyone saw it, and I'd love to toot my own horn about it, but it was just so freaking obvious that I can't even really take credit for it, just because everybody knew they had everything going for them. They had the health. They had, they just had a ridiculous turnover differential. And even at that, their point differential was not what you'd expect it to be. All the things I talked about the Packers happened to them, but even more extreme. And the only, thought was, well, it'll be a second year in a system, blah, 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 blah. And it didn't, it obviously didn't work out for them in the positive. They finished 8-8, which, given the amount of resources they put into their immediate versus their future, is very disappointing for them, I'm sure.
Did they have a first round pick this year? I don't remember.
Nope.
I didn't remember. I just
They got it. They did get a 4th round comp pick.
No, this first round one is going to the Raiders, right? This is for the Mac trade.
Yes, and I think they might be getting they might have an extra 2nd round pick that's coming back from that.
Okay.
So I mean, there's that, but they still don't have. They could have been picking in the top 16, and they're not.
Well, next year they'll be able to pick their quarterback in the first round.
Yeah, there you go. They'll be picking in the top 3 next year, so it's all right. No, the thing, that's the other thing though. Like I actually don't. I don't think they'll fall that far, because I still think the defense is likely even with some regression, because much like the Vikings, they don't have a lot of money. Now, they've already made some moves. They cut Prince Mukamara and somebody else. I can't remember. But they have enough money to do a few things. Not much, but a few things. But part of the problem for them, and one of the most intriguing things for them, is that 3 of their 4 inside linebackers, Kwiatkowski. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it. Okay. And Trevathan and one other dude.
You got Trevathan, right?
Name is escaping me. Are all free agencies this year, and they were those were the 3 guys who started.
That
most of the year.
Elbow thing last year was just it's one of those things, right? You in one hand it helps your team because it was during the Lions game. But I saw that it was funny because like the announcers were surprised. People were even in the Slack were surprised. I didn't see it. I saw that the moment it happened. I was like, "Ooh, that's gonna be it." That was ugly. I hate injuries like that. Those are the ones that really kind of give you the heebs.
Yeah, for sure. No, I I completely agree. And I think the one guy, Kwiatkowski, is probably the one that they'd most like to re-sign because he's the young, the young guy who stepped up big time when Trevathan went down. And I don't think that's not likely that they'll be able to re-sign him, just because I think he's going to get paid quite a bit somewhere. So I don't know. Like that's it's going to be tough for them to get over that. But I also think, inside linebacker in a defense like theirs is the least valuable position maybe on the defense. That doesn't mean it's not important, but they're going to be able to survive it to a degree with the other talent they have. They're still going to have excellent pass rush, although the decision that they're going to have to make on Leonard Floyd here will be an interesting one too, because he's due a lot of money this year, and they could save a lot of money by cutting him. But at the same time, there's nobody else out there that I think they're going to be able to go get that's going to be able to do a better job. At least not, they won't be saving any money in the process. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
The defense will, in my opinion, probably take a small step back, but I still think there's enough talent on that defense for them to likely be a bottom end top 10 unit. The obvious problem, the Bears are the hardest team for me to predict, though, and it's not because of the defense.
It's
the defense, I think, will be good.
You have a disdain for the Bears and the Bears fans that you really have this Schadenfreude of failure, and you
that is
really,
true. I won't try to pretend otherwise.
I'm telling you, this is my diagnosis as a unlicensed doctor.
but I mean, I don't think I was wrong last year, was I? Even bias potential aside, was I wrong?
Someone's blowing his horn again.
So I'm not saying I don't think that the Bears are necessarily going to be a worse team this year, but there's so much that is hard to predict about what's going to happen with the offense, because you don't know if they're going to spend money on a veteran quarterback to push Trubisky. You don't know if Trubisky could, finally take an actual step forward in year 4. Year 4 is he's entering the what you would see as the prime years of quarterback, and he's still young enough where he can learn things, but experienced enough that he knows. Now, that doesn't mean that he will. We've seen lots of guys who probably should have taken step forwards, not take step forwards, and obviously he took a step backwards last year. So it's hard to predict what'll happen there. It's hard to predict what'll happen in year 2 of their offensive system that they have right now. Matt Nagy, I should say maybe the third year, if you're looking at it that way. Nagy came in and won Coach of the Year his first year with the Bears, but they ran a gimmicky offense, and they can't get away with that anymore. They can't run a gimmicky offense that's going to take the league by storm anymore, because everybody's seen it. So you have to do some things, and they're going to lose Taylor Gabriel, who did not have a good year, but is also, a speedy guy on the outside and theoretically opens things up underneath. Here's the fun one. They are rumored. Well, I shouldn't say rumored. PFF predicts that the Bears will sign Eric Ebron this offseason. So I told you we were coming back to him.
Fun.
I told you we were coming back to him.
That is a whole lot of fun.
Yep. Yeah, talk about Schadenfreude. Yes, that would satisfy a lot of Lions fans. Schadenfreude, if he went there and did Eric Ebron things.
If you want to know how bad it is in Chicago, their former coach and Trestman has the league's worst record in the XFL.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought he was an NFL level coach.
Yeah. He did something right in the Canadian Football League, but
okay. Go Argonauts. Go Argos.
Yeah. They've also, like I've been saying, we'll keep coming back to the Bengals and to Andy Dalton. Go ahead and get your...
Oh, my. I remember Andy Dalton.
There we go.
I just don't. The concept. Do you remember Andy Dalton is completely foreign to me. Case. I'm old enough to remember.
I wasn't trying to literally say. I wasn't trying to literally say. Do you remember Andy Dalton? I was trying to say. Do you remember when Andy Dalton was? And I know that everybody does. I was purely hypothetical. Purely hypothetical, but they have been linked to him.
Of it makes it funnier, right? I mean,
the Bengals have given him permission and his agent permission to talk to the Bears about potentially a trade between the two, which while I think he'd probably be an upgrade over Mitch Trubisky, I think if you brought him in, you're spending a lot of money on the quarterback position that you don't have a lot of money to spend elsewhere. So you're losing talent elsewhere.
We need low level mediocrity out of the Bears, because the last thing we want is them to tank for Trev next year. That would be a worst case scenario for the Lions, actually.
I think that is a likely scenario. I honestly do think that is a likely scenario that they're going to end up in the 7-9 win range. Hopefully, I'd be fine with 6 wins because they're still not going to be able to get a top tier quarterback there, and that's the ultimate I think 7 to 8 wins for sure, based on what I think will still be a strong defense with an offense that still is having trouble clicking. But like I said, I think they are the hardest team in the division to predict right now. Maybe outside of the Lions, maybe the Lions are, just because the Lions have so much
massive
potential for growth, even though you don't know how much of it they'll reach.
Yep.
But
it's a hard one to buy, the Lions, right? Look, if you've watched football long enough to remember Andy Dalton, and if you know the Lions, you know that this team underperformed last year. They were a better team than what they put down for a whole number of reasons. We'll see what these improvements look like in free agency. We'll see what the improvements look like in the draft for this team. But that's really where it's at. Is this team that good and just squandering everything they have, which is a possibility, right? I don't think it's likely, but it's a possibility. Or is it that this team, just with the Stafford injury and everything else that went wrong last year, is going to play to their potential? I mean, you think about the rebound effect. This is a team that could now have a year where they play better than the capability of their players, and you see some really amazing stuff out of them. This is going to be really interesting. It's hard. It's really, really hard to predict the Lions right now. It makes it fun in its own kind of way. If you can kind of take your heart out of it a little bit.
Not go crazy with it, Not
don't
drive yourself insane.
Yeah, exactly. Take a sideline, look at it like Eli or Andy, and watch the team. And I think it's going to be a fun ride to see what happens and plays out this year. This is going to be an interesting team.
Well, okay, so Vegas came out and said, early prediction on the Lions, or the early betting line on the Lions, would be 6.5 wins. And I don't have a problem with them doing that, because I think that they're taking into account Stafford.
Yeah.
They're taking into account Stafford and whether or not, the uncertainty of whether or not Stafford plays the whole year. And I think we as fans all recognize and know that if we lose Stafford for, a good chunk of the season again, it's going to be a bad season. It just is. Even if they work on upgrading the backup quarterback situation, it's still not going to be a good season if Stafford misses significant time. And I can't blame Vegas for, taking that approach to it at all.
Can I ask a question about Matthew Stafford? Does he not have a television? They've got another baby on the way.
I know, right?
They got to not have TV. That's got to be what's going on in that house, right? It's nighttime and everything's quiet. I have no idea. Another baby on the way. This one's going to come in the June-July timeframe, according to Kelly's Instagram. We didn't have this on the docket, but I thought it'd be good to bring up. Versus right as the season's starting. I think it's probably a good time frame. I think they timed it very, very well. Good plans, Stafford family. Congratulations, by the way, on the new baby. Really excited. Number 4. This guy's a machine. He is a monster. He is in it for the long haul. If you don't think someone can take a grind, they have 3 kids and they go for number 4. You have to understand their committedness. I tell you, woo! I got 1, and I'm like, thank you. Congratulations, Stafford family. That's really amazing. And please get a television. All right. Anyway, anything else you want to wrap up on that?
I have a surprise topic that I forgot about bringing up. Fantasy football.
Do I have a wait? I don't think I have a surprise. Anything? Oh, here we go. Okay. Go ahead.
There we go. No, I just so I don't have a lot of friends who are super big football fans. Like I wasn't a super big football fan until I went to college in Philly, and I've talked about that a million times, so I'm not going to go through that whole thing. But I was in my late teens when I started an interest in the NFL. And
do you remember Andy Dalton?
No, okay. I don't have no idea who you're talking about.
He was the red apple.
As a result, I've been doing this forever, and I have a lot of friends who know I do this, but don't really have any understanding of what any of it is. So I suggested that I start a fantasy football league entirely made out of people who have no clue no idea of anything football related, and just see what happens. So I'm letting you guys know that we don't know jack about football league, the fantasy football league. The name might change at some point, but I will keep you guys apprised of the interesting things that happen in.
Do these people know they're in the league already?
Well, so I've got
right. I mean, you know how people are; they get competitive.
No, I don't think any of them are, because I don't think any of them care. I think they're all kind of invested in the chaos that's going to ensue.
Interesting. Okay, well, you have the observer effect. This is an interesting. I'm definitely interested in how this plays out.
So I will give you updates. I've got 4 people right now, and I think I've got another like 4 to 6 that I've reached out to who are potentials, and I'll make sure we have at least 8. If not,
are you
12.
playing this league? Is this just you?
No.
Okay.
I'll just commission. I'll just commission. That would not be a very nice thing to do.
Right? You're like, I always win my league. Is this how you do it?
Revenue growth opportunity. But no, I will just oversee the situation. My roommate Russell will be in it, as well as some other very good friends. So. I will keep you guys apprised, because it should be an interesting football experiment.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. All right.
And nothing else, an entertaining shit show. So.
All right. With that, I want to talk about some important dates really quick. March 18th, free agency begins. Starting on the 16th, just 6 days from when we're recording this, they can begin negotiations with those who will be unrestricted free agents. Mm-hmm. The 29th through the 1st, they'll have a NFL league meeting in Palm Beach. I suggest we all just make it a party trip. DLP party trip. We should all go down to Palm Beach and hang out and I don't know, make a scene in front of the meetings, just doing what we do. And then April 23rd through 25th, the NFL draft in Las Vegas. Remember, we will have the live draft party. You can join us here live, and we will cover it from top to bottom. We have a bunch of special guests like we always do. A lot of fun. It's your best way to avoid the coronavirus, the COVID, as they're calling it these days, as the cool kids say, COVID-19. The first round of the draft, Case and I will cover the whole draft evening. It'll be Sandman and I on day 2, covering rounds 2 and 3. We have a lot of fun. You guys will enjoy it. It is really, really awesome. And then May 1st through the 11th, there will be 2 separate 3-day rookie mini camps that happen, and those will get scheduled as we go on, and then OTAs after that. A lot of really, really good stuff. Also, don't forget about SeatGeek. Use SeatGeek. Oh, no, it's Tix. Tix, TIX.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Tix.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. I don't care if you're going to a concert or sporting event or music, whatever it is. The ballet, where you can see Case dressed up in his little funny clothes. Tix.DetroitLionsPodcast.com takes you to SeatGeek. They give us a kickback on any purchase of tickets you get, and it's a great way to support the show by doing something you're going to do anyway. All right, remember, this show needs your involvement. Head on over to the subreddit. Give us your feedback. We appreciate that. It helps us make this show better. It is the community show. We have built this on you guys' suggestions and feedback since the very beginning, and that will not stop. So go ahead and head on over and let us know what you think, what you love, what you don't. But always give us those 5-star reviews on all the places where you aggregate, where you download the show from, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, whatever. Also, don't forget about us on Patreon, patreon.com/DetroitLionsPodcast. You can hook us up with a donation there. We appreciate that. We'll give you access to the Slack and all the insider and upfront early information. Also, when we do things like the Wayne Fonts, Coach Fonts, AMA, and a huge player coming up shortly, AMA, you guys get the first chance to get your questions included. The subreddit usually gets late notice and a secondary look. Also, check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/The Detroit Lions Podcast, Instagram, Detroit Lions Podcast, and on the Twitter machine at DET Lions Podcast, DET Lions Podcast, the very best place to see Case.
Touching me, touching you.
You gotta, can you do a little more? Can you do it like the song?
Touching me, touching you.
Oh, that is now a drop. Thank you. Give us a call on Skype at Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word, Detroit Lions Podcast, or via the Lions line at 929-33-LIONS, 929-335-4667. And be sure to go to DetroitLionsPodcast.com, subscribe to the podcast so we can show up in your head automatically. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to see you next time on the Detroit Lions Podcast. Remember, no pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, no problems, baby, because we're your Detroit Lions and Reddit connection. Thank you, YouTubers. You guys are awesome. I love the chat. You guys have been funny tonight. Case is touching me and touching you, so enjoy that. And we will see you all soon. We're going to do something. I'm not sure. It depends on Case's schedule next week, on what day we're going to do. Free agency opens on Wednesday. So if Case can get Wednesday, that's a better day, or Thursday, so we can get those first initial signings and get some coverage on that. If not, I'll put out maybe a single show with just me doing a quick John on who we picked, or maybe I'll pick up Riz. But I'm going to tell you, we have a very, 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 very big guest coming up soon. You guys are going to get blown away, so keep your eyes open on that. You guys are going to love it. Thank you all, YouTube. We love you and appreciate all this.